So as Dan says, like in history, in the past, like people like created their internal system, and as David said, with the help of their system integrator, which is called SIR, as you guys know, and like this is pretty much building by yourself culture, and like, but obviously the system integrator is SIR is one of the most important role in terms of their Japanese system integration or system creation process. So however, now we talking about cloud computing, and so that this the role of the system integrator can be changing. So what do you think of this? So is it going to be changing, or like what the role of the system integrator will be down the road?
It's very interesting when you watch American companies go to Japan. They tend to either succeed wildly or fail completely. There are very few in the middle. And my sense is that American companies don't do a very good job of understanding two really important things about the Japanese IT culture, especially in larger businesses. Maybe three. The first we've already talked about, which is this sense that if we don't build it, design it for our business process, then it's not good enough, which has led to a real lack of penetration of packaged software solutions in Japan. And there's a ton of data, but if you look at SAP's global penetration in the ERP space, it's something like 37%. In Japan, it's something like 16%. And that kind of differential is true in every packaged software category. So that's the first thing. The second thing is American companies don't understand the importance of the systems integrators in the Japanese IT climate. The role they play, the impact they have, the fact that the CIO in a Japanese company is probably not a professional technologist who has grown up in an IT organization, but is a rotational role for a business person, maybe from a marketing organization, who's now the CIO. And the third thing is, Japanese businesses usually are not trying to save money by firing people the way American businesses do. In Japan,
that's so true.
If I go and I tell somebody, buy my product and you can get rid of these 10 people and save money, the American company will say, that's great, sign me up. And that same message in Japan is received very poorly. So I think that American businesses need to understand, among many other things, these three big issues in the Japanese market. Now, one of those three is the role that the systems integrators play. And I think it's a very interesting question, what the future holds in terms of the role of the big SIers. Hitachi, NEC, Fujitsu, MKI, CTC, all these guys, Nippon Steel, SI. I see them changing. I see them aware of the need to change. I see some of them aggressively trying to figure out what their role will be in the new world, but I don't know if they will change fast enough to be successful. And again, I think, I'll let David speak for Salesforce, but I think Salesforce's conclusion has been that the answer to that question is no. And my conclusion is I don't know.
What we've seen is kind of interesting, because in the early days of selling cloud in Japan, because we had a team in Japan that was very familiar with the Japanese market, we strongly embraced the SIers to begin with and made sure that they were not only our partners but our sales channel, to take advantage of the relationship that they had inside the existing companies. So that was very important in the early days. We did not try to bypass them like we did in the rest of the world. The rest of the world, we went to the VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, VP of Service, and basically ran away from IT. And in Japan, we said, let's go embrace the SIers, let's partner with them, let them resell. I mean, in Salesforce, it's funny, we have a very large direct sales force, but in Japan, we have a direct sales force, but we also sell through SIR partners, all right? What's interesting is that 5 years ago, the SIers were getting business with us and happy, and they were bringing business to us because they would find out from the company that the company wanted cloud computing. And the SIer would look in their sales bag and say, I only have one company that does cloud computing, and that's Salesforce.com. And so they would bring us in. The problem that we have now that cloud computing is widespread, we also have the problem that the SIers also have their own cloud solutions. Now, whether they're true cloud solutions or whether they're what Mark calls the false cloud, beware of the false cloud. Because if you have to buy hardware and install it in your premise, it's not the cloud, right? But if you are some companies, you can actually put a big box up on the stage and put a picture of a cloud on it, and it's now cloud computing that you can own, right? I'm not going to name any names. And in fact, the SIers are doing this too, right? This is what they're looking and saying, people want to buy cloud, and we're not making so much money when we're putting in Salesforce because it's actually too easy to implement. And it's an inexpensive product. And we can't make money if we're selling an inexpensive product because a percentage of nothing, a percentage of a small number is a smaller number, right? So they have to come up with their own kind of solutions, which they call cloud. And so we're now beginning to see competitive situations where, and it's much more like what we're used to with Accenture and Deloitte and Capgemini and the bigger global customers, is when you're dealing with an SI partner that has multiple solutions in their toolkit, they're going to sell the easiest thing they can sell that makes them the most money. It's just business, right? And so the change in the industry in Japan now in the SIers is that they now have other solutions that in some cases are truly cloud, and in some cases are almost cloud, and in some cases are false cloud, right? Cotton candy, yeah. And so you're getting into a competitive sales situation that you didn't have to worry about in the leading edge of this. And there was another point that I wanted to make. But
while you think about that, I'll build on what you said. It's fascinating. If you go talk to, and as I have recently, and I'm sure David has as well, a broad array of Japanese companies, you find a broad array of behaviors. So traditional established Japanese companies are still very much on the traditional SIer-oriented model. But if you go talk to DNA or GRI or another reasonably young, fast-growing Japanese company, they look exactly like an American company. They're all in the cloud. They don't work with an SIer. They have an internal IT organization with a professional CIO. They look exactly like any company that you would find here in the Bay Area in terms of the way they think about and implement information technology. Whereas if you go talk to a larger, more established, more traditional Japanese company, they don't.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really suggestive. So now time is running out, so let me ask last question, which is a very vague question. So what do you think will happen in 5 years in business infrastructure or working environment, due to the cloud computing change? I think the cloud computing is just beginning. Now we're just beginning and it will changing further. So please make a very bold prediction.
I think that you can fairly well extrapolate what Dan talked about earlier is the consumerization of the enterprise. It's just going to get more and more intense. 5 years is, in some ways it's a long time, in some ways it's not, but if you think about 5 more years of Android and iOS evolution. Think of what we saw, the iPad 5 years ago. Was it even out 5 years ago? Right, just coming out 5 years ago, right? Think of what you have in an iPad today. And compare that to what it was 5 years ago, and now project forward 5 more years. It's going to be a supercomputer, running on very little battery with whatever 5 generations of LTE or wireless communication is going to be, it's going to take all of the consumer level services that you're thinking about today as being kind of cool and just bringing that into the enterprise. The enterprise has already lost control of it. Most of the companies that we talk about, they have a bring your own device, a BYOD strategy. Yeah, I'm not going to give you a phone anymore. You guys choose the phone. I'll put AirWatch on it. We'll make sure that we're trying to lock down what applications you put on it. But the IT departments have given up. The GSA and some of our other government customers have a strategy that says we are only going to have enough desks for 50% of our employees. We expect that 50% of our employees do not come to the office every day. There's not a desk for you. You better not show up 5 days this week. You won't have a place to sit, right? So think about that, and think about that if all the companies are embracing this. I work from home 4 days a week in many cases, and I'm comfortable with that, but it's also kind of scary. You don't know what's going on at the office. You don't know what people are saying when you're not there. So, yeah. But I think that's going to become normal. 5 years from now, it's going to be people working at home because my mobile device and my connectivity is better at a Starbucks at the bottom of the Japan Post building in Tokyo than it is what I get in my conference room on my 7th floor of my IT department. Right? And so you're going to see all of these, anything that develops in the consumer world will penetrate into enterprise within 2 to 3 years. So, anything that you can do in the consumer world today, that's already 5 years from now. That's going to be old in the enterprise space. And it's going to cause companies to have to learn to iterate and innovate and become more agile in culture, or they're just going to fail. They're going to no longer exist.
Thank you. Don, can I hear you?
So I think a couple of important things are going to change. One is the ability of large companies to deploy technology to enable differentiation is going to go away. If you think about why Walmart won, they won because of their supply chain and because of the technology that enabled that supply chain. But with the cloud, a 3-person business can use exactly the same version of Salesforce.com, exactly the same version of Box, exactly the same version of NetSuite, exactly the same version of Zendesk that a 50,000 person company can use. In fact, Procter & Gamble has 30,000 seats of Box, and yet we have many customers who have 5 seats of exactly the same product. And historically, that was impossible. You could not run Oracle financials at a 5-person company. It was not economically practical. But in the new world, it will be. All companies will have access to the same world-class cloud suite of applications. And so it will level the playing field in a tremendous way as to the size of the organization. The second thing I would say is that IT organizations are going to change very fundamentally. We don't have a lot of IT people in this room, which is unusual for an audience that I'm speaking to, but there are an awful lot of people who think their job is to install raised flooring and air conditioners and network cabling, and those people are in deep trouble. But they are not going to lose their job in most smart companies. Instead, they're going to be turned into people who think their job is to solve problems for their colleagues. They're going to select and enable and customize cloud-based tools that enable their colleagues to work much more productively, much more quickly, much more efficiently, much more mobily. Is that a word? Yeah. On more mobile devices. And that's going to change everything about the way IT organizations think and function. IT organizations are no longer going to be about installing and maintaining hardware and customizing software. They're going to be about solving business problems by almost brokering cloud-based solutions. And that, in turn, is going to lead to companies, and this is my final thought, and then I'll shut up, companies deploying many more best-of-breed technologies from many more vendors than they have historically. So it used to be that you bought your front office stuff from Microsoft and your back office stuff from SAP, and you were done. You had 2 vendors, maybe you had 2 or 3 point solution vendors for really specialized stuff. But basically, you got most of your technology from just 2 or 3 people. That's going to change. Because of the horizontal integration that's possible among cloud applications, because they all are built with APIs, because you don't have to install any hardware, and so the level of effort to do business with a new vendor is much lower, you're going to see a much broader set of vendors solving problems in these enterprises than you ever have in the past. So those are 3 big trends that I think this will all enable.
Actually, he reminded me of a point, but I'll be very quick. The issue with SIers and the things that SIers are going to have to do in the future, and they all say they want to do this, is it's not a business of hooking things together. It's not a business of integrating disparate systems. It's not a business of installing new software on old hardware and upgrading and that sort of stuff. SIers are going to have to become business process partners and are going to have to go into companies and help them to change the culture and identify strategic changes that their companies can make. And the pitch to Japanese companies is not take those 10 people from IT and fire them. It's take those 10 people from IT and put them into the business and help the business innovate better. And you have to become more of a consultant, a business process consultant, if you want to be successful. Because I agree with you, you're not going to install wires and wireless connections and things like that. When you get to the point where we've got wide area wireless connection everywhere, why do you need to even have those little things sitting on the wall? So the people have to learn how to add value to the company. That's kind of scary, by the way.
The one thing I would add to that is they are going to be building apps on Force.com. They are going to be building custom applications on the Box platform. I mean, Bechtel has got 30 some odd iPad, custom built, very task-specific iPad apps that they're rolling out now. And most of those apps are built to integrate with one or more of their underlying cloud platforms. So there is this piece of work to be done. It's just a different kind of work than systems integrators have done in the past.
Is it like there's system integrator or any system add more flavor of the business perspective so that they can solve more problems, or just like they are trying to strive to change?
I don't know. My view in the Japanese market is that the people who have historically been perceived as the second-tier systems integrators, the CTCs and MKIs and those kind of guys, they're actually the ones who are going to win. And the guys who are in real trouble are the guys who are manufacturers of hardware and systems integrators, NEC, Fujitsu, Hitachi, those guys, because they're not going to be able to make their money by selling their own hardware the way they have historically. Whereas the so-called second-tier guys, yeah, they've resold other people's products and they've had their own products, but they've always added a lot of value through custom application development, custom integration, that kind of thing.
They have understanding of the age of the client's business and like.
Yeah, they are not used to making as much money by selling hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at CTC. They're a big Cisco reseller, and they make a lot of money reselling Cisco switches, but they also make a lot of money building and deploying applications and application integrations and stuff like that, because they're not a hardware manufacturer the way the big 3 guys are.
Mm-hmm. Architecture, the architect of the future is not trying to figure out which boxes and which operating systems and which databases to put together. They're going to be in a cloud platform trying to put together the application that's appropriate for the solution they're building on that particular cloud platform, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And that's a completely different sell. That is, you're completely in your head. You're not selling hardware, you're not selling boxed prepackaged software packages. Mm-hmm. You're creating and adding value.
Got it. Thanks a lot. So now I'd like to open the floor for questions. So like if you have any questions, please raise your hand.